Amigo y amiga estudiante, hemos andado juntos bajo el sol y la lluvia por más de 30 días, guiados en esta intensa jornada por algo justo, sencillo y razonable: la defensa de nuestra educación pública universitaria.
Te hablamos a ti también, madre, padre, trabajador y trabajadora, ciudadano y ciudadana, en fin, a todo el pueblo de Puerto Rico. Les decimos que ha sido un camino largo, intenso y difícil, porque el presidente de la Torre y la presidenta de la Junta de Síndicos, Igris Rivera, han hecho todo lo posible por evitar el diálogo abierto, entorpecer el proceso de negociación y rechazar nuestros reclamos. Tanta ha sido su intransigencia y su mala fe que han llegado al punto de recurrir a la mentira, la difamación y la violencia.
A pesar de todo eso, y gracias al apoyo de la comunidad estudiantil, nos hemos mantenido firmes en nuestra encomienda de hacer valer los mandatos de cada una de nuestras asambleas. Asambleas democráticas que representan el sentir mayoritario de nuestra comunidad. Reclamos tan contundentes que han sido ratificados una y otra vez. Reclamos que afectan a estudiantes, profesores, profesoras, empleados y empleadas en los 11 recintos. En fin, reclamos que si no se atiende, la UPR sin duda sería otra universidad.
Por eso hemos insistido en sentarnos a negociar y queremos seguir negociando. Nuestros reclamos han sido los mismos desde el primer día. El primer reclamo ha sido la derogación de la certificación 98, un documento que de implementarse como estaba le hubiese arrebatado el beneficio de la exención de matrícula a estudiantes que representan un valor incalculable para nuestra universidad. Hoy le podemos informar que hemos rescatado el derecho de estos estudiantes y la aportación que hacen a la universidad, logrando que la Junta de Síndicos se comprometa a garantizar nuestros acuerdos. Aún falta lo esencial: que la Junta de Síndicos lo certifique y cumpla con su palabra.
Como segundo reclamo, exigimos que no se continúe con la política de privatización en el sistema de la UPR. Específicamente, exigimos una garantía de que no se privatizará ningún recinto mediante enajenación ni alianza público-privada. Logramos que la Junta de Síndicos se comprometa a no utilizar la Ley de Alianzas Público-Privadas del 2009 y proteger así el patrimonio universitario, pero falta que lo garantice mediante certificación y cumplan con su palabra.
El tercer reclamo es de los más preocupantes y se ha convertido en la verdadera amenaza de este proceso. Este es el alza en los costos de estudio, ya sea por un alza directa a la matrícula o por la imposición de una nueva cuota para todos y todas. No en un futuro lejano, sino ahora, este próximo agosto. Cada reunión nos confirma que la administración universitaria tiene toda la intención de poner el peso de esta crisis sobre los hombros de los y las estudiantes y sus familias. Esto representaría un peso adicional a los aumentos de 33% en el 2005, 12% en el 2007 y 4% anual desde el mismo año, que pagará todo el estudiantado de nuevo ingreso hasta el 2016.
Es importante que ustedes sepan que como parte de ese aumento escalonado, la administración se comprometió contigo, estudiante, a no subirte más la matrícula durante los años en que deberías culminar tu grado. Así te lo garantizó la Junta de Síndicos en la certificación 60. Así lo garantizó la administración en una carta que te enviaron el 28 de junio de 2007. Así lo garantizó la presidenta de la Junta de Síndicos, Igris Rivera, en una carta de abril de 2009, a la coordinadora de los fondos Jarra, donde dice, y cito: aumentar el costo de la matrícula no es una opción viable y no resolvería la situación.
Pero más preocupante aún es que se suponía que esos fondos ARRA se usaran para evitar la imposición de cualquier medida que afectara tu capacidad de seguir estudiando. Al día de hoy, en la mesa de negociación, la administración se rehúsa a garantizar este compromiso. Por el contrario, hablan de un aumento disfrazado de cuota especial que podría llegar hasta los $1,300. Por eso le exigimos a la Junta de Síndicos una garantía de que no habrá otro aumento.
Estos tres reclamos anteriores se desprenden del enorme problema presupuestario por el que atraviesa la universidad. Los mismos administradores han reconocido su incapacidad de cobrar los más de 300 millones de dólares que le adeudan a la UPR y que junto a la Ley 7 son la base del déficit. Hay que preguntarse entonces, ¿quién debería pagar por esta irresponsabilidad de la administración? Nosotros con un alza en la matrícula para pagar préstamos y deudas, con la pérdida de nuestros recintos.
Como último reclamo, proponemos que no se sancione a ningún estudiante. Defender la educación pública superior no es un delito y penalizar a los miles de estudiantes que lo hemos hecho durante todo este largo proceso sería una acción injusta. ¿Por qué injusta? Porque ustedes saben que esta huelga se ha caracterizado por ser un espacio creativo, distinto y pacífico. Hemos pintado aceras y murales, hemos creado huertos y emisoras radiales, hemos hecho obras teatrales en la calle y ante las persistentes amenazas de la bota y la macana respondimos con canciones y flores.
¿Cómo sancionar la siembra de árboles, la limpieza de áreas verdes, la música y el arte? Pero principalmente, ¿cómo sancionar la defensa de una educación pública para todos ustedes, pueblo de Puerto Rico? No se puede.
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 Con estos reclamos en proceso de negociación y su solidaridad, estamos impulsando aquello que reclamamos desde un principio, una universidad donde se garantice la excelencia y accesibilidad de nuestra educación. Nosotros, los y las estudiantes, somos la esencia de la universidad, aquella que es tuya, de tu familia y de todo Puerto Rico. Le corresponde ahora a la Junta de Síndicos asumir su responsabilidad histórica y terminar lo que han comenzado, la negociación. La negociación con los que representamos a los 64.511 estudiantes.
La negociación para certificar los acuerdos sobre las exenciones. La negociación para certificar la prohibición de privatizar los recintos. La negociación para garantizar que no se aumentarán más los costos de estudio. La negociación para que no se penalice el derecho a defender la educación pública universitaria que pagamos todos y que te pertenece a ti. Cuando esto se logre, nadie habrá perdido, todos habremos ganado y la universidad seguirá siendo nuestra, del pueblo de Puerto Rico.
11 recintos, una UPR.
Welcome to the strike against austerity in Puerto Rico. Unfortunately, Giovanni Roberto, who was the one who was scheduled to actually come and give the talk, could not come because fortunately, the strike actually had its victory a couple of days ago. Without further ado, the students from the University of Puerto Rico.
We're gonna give an overall introduction, pre-strike, political context, social context, and then strike, post-strike. As the financial crisis provides a shock buffer for cutthroat politicians, Puerto Rico, like almost everywhere else in the world, has been gut-busted by neoliberal policy. 2009 started off with Ley 7, Law 7, or Fiscal Emergency Law, which annulled all collective bargains, freezed all promotions, and eliminated all marginal benefits from public workers, and most alarmingly of all, it provided for the elimination of over 30,000 jobs and the dismantling of many public service offices and institutions that are critical for social health. Meanwhile, another law was passed that provided for the establishment of public-private alliances. This is the privatization of state services with the assurance that if they run at a loss, the government will have to take care of those losses. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Altogether, these devastating laws, the world economic, social, and political crisis, the race of unemployment, the attacks against the working class, education, public health, etc., were the neoliberal package of a new government administration that detonated the beginning of a movement that has just won the student strike. Law 7 was so brutal that it was capable to drag thousands of people out to the streets to protest against its implementation. This, though, didn't place as much pressure on the union leaders as was needed for them to act upon their words. They spoke out against the government and continuously talked about the upcoming general strike, but this never resulted in concrete or effective actions. Thousands of jobs were lost throughout the island. A whole lot of other fucked up laws were pushed through, and many communities were being directly repressed by the state. A lot of sympathy was brewing over the idea of a general strike, but the union leaders evaded its construction. The rank and file was eager to hit the government back hard, but didn't organize to go over the official leaders. There was lots of fear. Never in recent history had so many instances of our collective lives been so adversely affected. Law 7 also affected the University of Puerto Rico, for it eliminated the new funding that came from the state, which is already in crisis and with a minimum budget. Moreover, the law says that the UPR will not be included in the list of affected agencies or institutions, but it actually reinforced the fiscal crisis of the UPR system, as those new revenues that the state was getting weren't, going into the funding for the university as it should. Hence, the new neoliberal administration, using crisis as justification for their austerity, started implementing new measures against students, professors, and employees. All of this within a background of at least 10 years of privatization policies, the reduction of services for students and spaces available to us, the freezing of positions for both professors and employees, etc. At the main peak of this context, the students organized a 24-hour strike in solidarity with workers that were being laid off as a cause of Law 7. And right after this day, action committees were created. They were groups that organized students in various faculties for the upcoming strike and organized different protests against Law 7, which included the call for a general or national strike. Students were a part of the main organizers of this national strike that was held on October 15th. The students, though, responded differently. They started organizing early mid-semester. The action committees, which were approved in a previous assembly, wasted no time in starting to build up a movement capable of participating actively in a massive strike. And so we organized a series of activities throughout the university that directly challenged the administrative constraints of the institution. We organized the painting of murals, massive pickets, marches, assemblies, the occupation of the social sciences faculty in the eve of 2009's May 1st, among other actions, most of which are considered illegal by the very repressive students' new rule book or handbook, rule book. From August to January 2009, our actions were mostly oriented around the possibility of going on strike with the workers, but soon enough it was clear that the unions were paralyzed from top to bottom. That is, they were talking a lot and doing very little. In the beginning of the semester, January to May 2010, we decided to work independently from the Brotherhood of Exempt Non-Teaching Employees and the Puerto Rican Professors Association and other sectors, which had been talking about, a general strike, had been talking about resistance, but really it didn't, they didn't act upon the words. Understanding of the need of going beyond merely making denouncements to finally taking action against the administration, As early as December of 2009, the OSI, Organización Socialista Internacional, we proposed the idea of establishing an organizing structure that could group the base committees by faculties, the committees of students in defense of the public education that have been formed, and the different action committees, and other base committees like the Committee Against Homophobia and Discrimination. This proved to be a needed space for the coordination of efforts and the socializing of information between the groups and individuals participating. A space to discuss and debate what we can do depending on our strengths and analysis of material conditions. This way, with the organizer of committees once constituted, we could finally build joint actions between the committees and manifest ourselves as one student movement. In April of 2010, a few of us started to spread the idea that we needed a strike since we needed a student strike since we had already tired out all other forms of protest, pickets, marches, occupations, letters, invitations for open dialogue with the administration, which were ignored. And so the strike was approved in assembly with a lot of support, and I'm gonna give an overall description of it. The strike at Rio Piedras started as a 48-hour strike called by the students. Rio Piedras is the main campus with 20,000 students. It's, I guess, I don't know how much % of the whole student population, but this was after the administration announced budget cuts of over 100 million, raises in tuition costs, and because this wasn't enough for them, they put student tuition waivers on a moratorium. Other 9 campuses of the UPR system out of 11, that's total, joined the strike. 10 were totally closed down and under student control. The only exception was that of the School of Medicine, where patients receive medical attention, public clinic. The UPR struggle was characterized by a very democratic decision-making process and excellent organization. The students elected a national negotiating committee, which had representation from each campus. This committee took the demands of the base to the negotiations. However, any decision to be made at the negotiating table had to be brought back to the student bases for approval or disapproval. By base, I mean those organized within the gate committees, which formed as the strike started, meaning the people who were living at the university gates throughout the 10 campuses. Each gate made proposals, then were shared with other gates at the coordinating committee and then in strike meetings, and the main decisions were made after those debates that were held in strikers' assemblies. Another group that was formed as the struggle evolved is the National Campus Coordinating Committee, DACONARU. The purpose of this committee was to coordinate national actions within the student movement and alongside other groups such as unions and other sectors of the community in order to strengthen and expand struggle. We aspire that this National Coordinating Committee will also integrate private colleges and universities as well. These developments are part of a variety of events that helped strengthen the movement in defense of the UPR. Since the strike started, the administration has tried to intimidate students through different tactics that only show how desperate they are. The first maneuver used by the administration was to announce an academic recess. When that didn't work, they sued the students to make them open the university, but that too failed. Then administrators called the riot police, who tried to stop the students from getting inside the campus. The police beat up people and pepper sprayed them, but that didn't succeed in breaking the strike either. Instead, massive community mobilizations arose to support the students. Next, the police superintendent of Puerto Rico, Jose Figueroa Sancha, ordered UPR officials to prevent the delivery of food or water inside the campus. Not just UPR officials, but riot police to prevent delivery of food. But Figueroa Sanchez's hardline stance towards the students caused the community to get even angrier. So people started bringing food to the students and challenging the police in massive levels. There's actual videos out there that you can see 3 minutes of people just throwing things over a fence, because cops even beat up and arrested one parent when he tried to deliver breakfast to his son. So that's the level how tense things got. The excessive use of force by police was remarkable during this struggle, and along with this tactic was the legal one. The UPR administration filed a lawsuit against student strike leaders, most of who are on the negotiating committee. This has slowed the negotiating process even more. But rather than being intimidated, the response of the students and the community was to fight back. People have started actively defending themselves against the police, which had not been common in past struggles. I'm going to talk about solidarity, which was very important in the struggle. The strike has been marked by solidarity from all sectors. For example, parents got organized to support their children in the fight, and with parents came the whole family. So a few days before the actual strike started, when it was, being cooked up, it was already planned, the parents started organizing. So, the strike provided for other sectors outside, the students to organize themselves, because, we didn't organize them. So that was great. The use of technology has also been an important factor in this strike. Internet helped spread the news real fast, and social networks such as Facebook were important for things as emergency mobilizations, among other things. Through the Internet, students have been able to set up strike radio stations that transmitted the events from students' perspective and from within the university gates. The press, the local press, were actually tuned in to all the time to these strike radio stations. That's where they got most of their information, and that's how they would find out what things were going on so they could be there. They have organized demonstrations, posted pictures, videos, and we've received a lot of video messages of solidarity from many countries in the world. The support we've rallied around the strike from all sectors of the university is also historic. The Professors Association and the Brotherhood of Non-Teaching Employees and even the Conservative Workers Union of the UPR have all supported the strike. It is important to point out that the LGBT community played a big role in the building of the struggle. There is an openly gay student member on the National Negotiating Committee who has gained full trust and the respect from the base. The strike has also been an opportunity for people to learn about many important topics. It was a space where documentary films were shown and talks around social and political issues were being held frequently. Professors came to the campus and taught informal classes on different subjects for support. Even students from private universities joined the strike, lived with us those 50-something days, lost their semesters in their own schools. They're even considering changing over to UPR. In words of one of those students, he said, "I have learned more on this strike than in all the years I've spent studying at my university." You know, it was a very important learning process. And art also played a big role in it. Students have painted lots of beautiful murals inside the university, politically charged murals. And people have written songs. They've done short films about the democratic process of the strike and much more. Even the UPR choirs and bands have been present. They were present and prepared specific pieces for this, for the strike. Actors were involved too. A group called the Unit of Clown Police did performances making fun of cops, and they emphasized on how they blindly follow absurd instructions, and it was very nice to see that, right? You see the line of riot police, and just in front of them is the clown police, doing it in their face. It's the students at the gates also organized to cook and clean. We were very careful of hygiene and keeping the campuses in order and safe. We also had security committees that were in charge of keeping, doing rounds, security rounds, making sure strikebreakers would come in, or vandals, paid vandals. Along with the enormous success of the strike, we also had to deal with the important challenge of integrating those students who came in to participate into our organizing structures. The left in the university has played a fundamental role in the construction of the strike, but the number of students in left organizations is small. The major challenge in the UPR struggle is building a strong student left that can give direction and perspective to the movement and take advantage of the momentum of the struggle to build a radical mass movement against the government's policies as a whole. And, well, the agreements were signed, but our struggle hasn't ended, not even near. Now that this part of the fight has been won, the plan is to regroup, strengthen the movement, and come up with a response that can effectively eliminate the newest threat to public education. A fee of over $500, originally $1,200, $1,200, the Board of Trustees wants to impose on all students unconditionally as of next January. likely that we are going to have to engage in another strike this next semester, for it is just now that we are going to see the actual effects of the economic deficit and the restructuring of the university around it. The $100 million in budget cuts are to be implemented, and we're facing the grim possibility that the cost of our studies is going to double, maybe triple, with the special fiscal emergency fee over the many others we already have to pay. This time, though, we could be talking about a coordinated strike between the students and different workers' unions at the university. For we students are obviously not the only ones being affected by the decrease in funding. Our professors and the non-teaching personnel are being threatened with a 2% reduction on their salary. Professors are being asked to give free courses. They're going to be denied compensations and bonuses. A lot of positions are going to be eliminated, and salary increases frozen, among other things. There is no going around the fact that the only way to cause enough of a headache to the university's administration and the government is to unite all those forces captive within the UPR community, the workers and the students. We as the community are being attacked on all fronts while the administration functions as an external agent that pretends to keep on making a profit out of the situation. The fact is, they talk about austerity and deficit, but they've actually raised their budget for this upcoming semester, the Board of Trustees, despite all the rhetoric, around being considerate and submitting to the same austerity measures. We have the capacity to build a strike of these proportions, but it depends on the level of coordination that can be achieved between the Brotherhood of the Exam Non-Teaching Workers and the Association of Puerto Rican Professors, and their individual work within themselves towards the formation and integration of more informed and proactive rank-and-file workers. It is also imperative for the students to continue organizing compañeros and compañeras, doing the base work necessary to counteract the administration's false propaganda around its stance and around our movement. We need to keep investigating and coordinating our committee's efforts. Information has to be socialized, and new strategies for action have to be elaborated as we go. This is a totally ongoing creative project because you gotta find new ways to resist and take the offensive once in a while. Our organization has several proposals besides consolidating the action committees, other base committees, and integrating the unorganized student strikers into these structures. We see the importance of organizing massive activities on a nationwide scale, the importance of assuring the continuity of the CONARU, the Coordinating Campus Committee, and the organizing of new committees throughout the other 10 campuses. This work is very much necessary for the student body to become and be recognized as a new political force. To be feared. The organization across campuses means for us the possibility of building a syndical structure, a union or a students' federation that would work from below to safeguard our rights and serve as a structure strong enough and wide enough to consolidate our forces for the ongoing struggle for public education. Besides the student union, we should also build strong ties with other sectors, continue building these ties with other sectors of the working class community so that we can work and struggle together as a single force, not just for our demands as students, but for our demands as part of a broader island-wide community. This is why it's necessary to raise again, as of now, the idea of a national struggle and push forward once again the debate around building a general strike, but above all to start paving its way through concrete action. We have to get in contact with the workers, the bases, and establish one-on-one relationships. We need to explain how the student movement has been able to organize for resistance and how it is possible for them to do the same and so much more. Serious conversations and reunions have to be coordinated between the union leaders, and not just union leaders, but and the students, just as we have to organize coordinating activities and mobilizations where a clash of protagonisms from one sector or another can cease to be a problem. The neoliberal offensive will not stop anytime soon. Just as it advances through different fronts, we have to keep on pushing through our ideas, the necessity and urgency of continued struggle. So, this to end, we urge all of you to keep organizing desde abajo, from below, and to not give up the struggle because it is definitely the only way to win.
Jorge Mercado and the LGBT community, and how did it went from the response against Mercado's murder to having an active, openly gay member out serve on the negotiating committee, and then Sarah's last question about building up for the strike. So.
Hi, I'm Keisha Rivera. I'm a student at the University of Puerto Rico. I just wanted to answer your question about the LGBT community. Actually, that wasn't the only murder. There was actually 2 more very recently. And then the police, they're like, oh my God, he was in a short skirt, so he deserved it. And then there's this brutal attack on the LGBT movement right now. It's actually forming in Puerto Rico. We actually don't have a very solid LGBT movement, but it's actually coming from the ground up right now, and they're actually organizing. And we're from the OSI, from it's like ISO in Spanish. And we're actually working in the university. We're constructing the LGBT movement because we believe the LGBT people are working class people. They're working class people too, and they're just as oppressed as anybody. They suffer so much discrimination in the workplace and the university. It's horrible. So we're actually trying to work with that now. And then since the LGBT movement was constructing from the ground up, while the strike, the budget cuts, and everything at the university was going on, they felt, since we had been working with them hand in hand, they felt the need to be in solidarity, and then they identified themselves with this struggle too.
I want to add something about that. The Committee Against Homophobia and Discrimination, they organized around a specific issue, which was one of the bars near the university. They hit a couple of they kicked out of the local and hit a couple of lesbian girls because they were kissing, and so the committee formed around that and started doing work inside the university against homophobia or any type of discrimination for that matter. And it's a committee that has. There's a lot of socialists in there, and it has become, they're very convinced, that they're not just fighting for their demands as LGBT community, but they're fighting for a better society, and justice and equality for all. And so since they've been doing that work, the trabajo, and working with the people, and their presence, a visual and presence in the university. So when assembly came, where we voted for the strike and we voted for a negotiating committee to be established, somebody from the floor said, I think this committee should have one of its members on the negotiations committee, because it was going to be formed with one person from each committee by faculty. So then somebody proposed they would be added there too. They had representation, and it was accepted by the majority, and it passed. And so that's how they have one in the negotiating committee, how they, they've been a very active presence within the strike.
How is the general movement against Fortunio? Well, when he became the governor, he started with all his measures. So all the nation was organized through different manifestations throughout all the first months. And then when the timeline came, this is the timeline, October 15th, we were, students were the main active group that was organizing it with other structures, unions and stuff. And that became the timeline, it was the goal for the movement, and it kind of dropped after that. But we students kept on working against Fortunio. So after that day, all the main movement against Fortunio canalized their anger through us, through students.
So that's why the main support was like so visible, because they went to the gates, to the strike, to support. So that's the way, yeah. So right now, after this strike, we have to make it possible to go outside the university and start struggling against the government. So, and about...
I just wanted to address the question that how was the relationship between the unions and the students before the strike? It was actually more like a network of communication. We socialized information between the two groups, but there wasn't actually any actions, joint efforts, but only because the unions were like, oh, we don't want to jump on your bandwagon, we don't want to get, like, you guys are going ahead, and we don't want to, like, just seem opportunist. And then we're like, jump ahead, go ahead. We're like, get on. We're like, okay, we're building this, and we want everyone to be a part of it. And then the relationships started to construct in the streets. Just the students and the workers only made like actions together the 1st of May, the International Workers' Day. So that's practically where we met every year. Like, we marched to Fortaleza, which is like the government house in Puerto Rico. And then after that, we didn't make like any actions together to make our offensive stronger. Actually, in the strike, we had multi-sector meetings where we asked the leaders of the unions to come in and meet with us, and it was an initiative of the coordinator of the campuses, and we actually did a march for life, work, and education. And we tried to mobilize as much students from around the 11 campuses as we could. And then the unions mobilized they actually helped more with like the sound and stuff like that, resources, which we're constructing that now. But the relationships now are very, very close, because they actually they actually understand the need to organize, and then now that we won the strike, they actually know that we can win this. So
somebody asked, how did we build up solidarity around our movement? There's a couple of factors that come into play. As we have already mentioned, all that anger and frustration people had over all, these repressive and oppressive policy, the layoffs, a lot of other things we didn't include. A lot of other just Law 7 is like the worst law, but there was a whole other how do you say
Scaffolding.
A whole other scaffolding. A whole other set of laws, that involved, making permits easier for desarrolladores, construction developers, and a lot of laws paving the way for communities to be expropriated. A lot of communities, suffering really hard, not just, the workers that were laid off, but thing is, all this anger, all this frustration because of the inability of the workers' movements or other alternative social movements, to actually resist with direct actions, instead of just, press releases or saying we're going to do this or that, there was a real lack of action, and people wanted to do, people wanted to, but they didn't have those structures. So when it comes to be that we're the ones, challenging the administration and challenging the government, because it's not a fight with the administration. They're just they're just government's puppets, basically. So since they saw that what we were capable of, it was it's like hope. So that's where all that flowed in, and they came and they gave us money, or they gave us talks, or they gave us books, or they came and asked, what do you guys need, and they give us food, and there was constant attention around us, and that's how they themselves organized networks around us for helping with security, helping with being vigilant in case we were tried to be forced forced out. And we actually the different unions they helped through resources. They don't help through direct action as they should, but they help with resources, and they actually had camps in each gate around the university, surrounded it, and they had 24-hour camps with people taking 24 turns, 4-hour turns, 24 hours a day, being very helping us out with that. And that, just when you're sleeping for 30-something days in a campus, I'm surrounded by police, it's a very tense atmosphere, and that helps out a lot, just, presence, having people be there. Also, the social networks through internet, and creative use of media, because we not only created our own media channels, the strike stations, different strike stations in different campuses, and we also creatively used, the mainstream media too, because we were constantly doing press releases and, press conferences, and we were constantly trying, to get the information out there. It was accessible for people to tune in, see our perspective in things, and help us out. Also, it helped a lot with the international community, to gain that support. Also, we kept we had a relationship with the ISM, the International Student Movements. We kept them up to date with what we were doing, just as we kept up to date with what they were doing. And so we also their network helped us out too, to get our press releases and our emergency press releases out really fast. And so that international response, not only from student movements, but from artists, international recognized writers, and that created a whole psyche around the importance of this struggle, and kept gaining people to the solidarity movement.
Hi, my name is Giancarlo. I hope I don't kill you with my English. About the question about the anarchist ideology and how we participate with others ideologies at the same time, I think it's related with a conference I came here yesterday about the internationalist socialist politics, because the conclusion is what we need to build a non-sectarian left, and that's very important. And instead of doing that, we need to build an anti-capitalist front, and in this front is where different ideologies debate and make them work together. The student movement, as is now in the strike, is very solid, but at the beginning of the semester, it wasn't. Student leaders were don't talk each other. It was divided. It was personalisms, but we talk with, for example, with anarchists, and in that debate we notice in which things we are in the same page, and we know. And for example, things like our concept about the state, it doesn't matter for now, for fighting now about the things that we have in the university. So those differences we don't need them now discuss it because we need to build and recruit more students to have more power to fight. Quickly, about building this like movement to build a committee was a central part to do base committees that are that can, like we were talking, they're not sectarian and they're just like be like people don't, how to say it, no amplio, un comité amplio, an inclusive committee. And the important is that we participative democracy. Okay, we emphasize in participative democracy, and people make decisions from the law. And what to do here? If we are on the faculty, what's the next step? That's always a question. What's the next step? So we need to do actions, but from low to high. So we make what's the bulletin in English?
Bulletins, informational bulletins.
Bulletins, meetings, marches, murals, and in all this process, we can't stop talking about working class. So as they develop, they concern on what we're doing. So at the strike, we can talk about working class and the students. But in the first, we can relate that. They can relate with working class as first instance. So we build it in the debate and talking too much about it.